Do you ever feel like you're the person who always steps in, always helps, always takes care of things, and then you're also the person who ends up drained, exhausted, and resentful? If you want a real people pleasing example from everyday life that actually explains why this happens, you're in the right place. Through 18 years as a therapist, my work as a therapeutic coach, and my own personal experience, I've come to understand what's actually happening under the surface that keeps people-pleasing patterns going and can make it hard to break free. In this video, I'll walk you through a real-life example of people-pleasing, then we'll break it down to see the internal processes that drive it. Finally, I'll show you what it can look like to respond differently with more intention so you can keep being a helpful, caring person without draining yourself. Before we get into the example, I want to name the specific pattern you're about to hear. This is what I call the helper-caretaker theme of people-pleasing. The general attitude behind it is, it's my job to take care of everyone. This is one of the most common patterns I see, and it shows up in really ordinary, everyday situations. Here are some of the patterns in the theme. You're always helping or taking care of people and often forget to take care of yourself. You tend to be more focused on being there for others than on pursuing your own interests. You're always trying to make everyone else's life easier or better or make people comfortable. You help, give, serve, and do things for others automatically to the point where it doesn't feel like you're consciously choosing anymore. You're often perceived as selfless, and people know you'll drop everything to show up for them. You prioritize what others need or want from you and put your own wants and needs second or last. Common thoughts and beliefs in this pattern are, if people need my help, I have to give it to them, and other people need me more than I need them. If you don't relate to the helper-caretaker theme in particular, I hope you stick around anyway because there are some other themes mixed in this example. And there will probably be pieces of this that you do relate to if you have any people-pleasing or over-functioning tendencies at all. After the example, I'm going to dissect what's happening underneath it and what keeps the people-pleasing patterns going. Okay, so imagine your kid comes home with a flyer or you open your inbox and see an email from the school. There's a school fundraiser coming up and they need volunteers. You read it, and honestly, you're already tired. You had a big week at work and a busy weekend, and you were really hoping the next weekend would be more low-key. You'd love to get some rest, and you desperately need to catch up on your own stuff at home. But you sign up almost automatically, barely thinking about it, because you're telling yourself, it's just a few hours, they really need the help. If I don't do it, someone else is going to have to pick up the slack. And then, because this is how it usually goes, you don't just sign up for one thing. You sign up to organize snacks, help with setup, and coordinate the program. You bring extra stuff just in case. You plan to stay until the end so that everything runs smoothly. On the day of the event, you show up early, and before you even get a chance to start setting up, one of your mom friends pulls you aside because she wants to talk. She's upset about something another mom is doing, and she needs to vent. So you listen for a few minutes, you validate how she feels, and you try to smooth things over between the two of them. And this isn't the first time this has happened. You're usually the one people come to for support and reassurance. Sometimes you don't mind being that person, but today it's taking you away from the tasks that you came early purposely to do. Then you move forward with the event. You're answering questions, filling in gaps, fixing little problems before anyone else even notices them. If someone forgets something, you've got it covered. If something doesn't go as planned, you adjust and make it work. Someone cuts themselves and you have a Band-Aid in your bag. Someone else has a headache and you've got a Tylenol. By the end, people are thanking you up and down, and someone says, I don't know what we would do without you. And that does feel good because it makes you feel useful and needed. It also feels like this is just who you are. Then you get home, sit on the couch, and realize you're toast, completely wiped out. Not just normal tired, but irritable and shut down. You have to really put on a front to get dinner ready and be even a little bit chipper for your kids. Then it hits you just how behind you are at home and how much still needs to be done. And then the resentment kicks in. Why am I always the one doing this? Why didn't anyone else step up? You might even feel annoyed at the school for asking, or even annoyed at your kid for being a kid and having a school, you know that that doesn't make any sense. So you immediately feel guilty because no one forced you. You volunteered. You realize you said yes, even though you knew you didn't really have the energy. So even though you're resentful, you can also see your part in it for not setting limits. The thing is, it didn't really feel like a choice. It felt automatic, like something you slipped into without thinking and only questioned after you paid the price. So let's dissect this situation. What's actually happening here? Usually, there are a few interweaving internal processes going on when we get stuck in people-pleasing patterns. One thing that can be happening for this person is she might have an underlying sense of not being good enough. She might feel like her need for a low-key weekend to rest and catch up doesn't really matter. She may feel that the school's needs are more important than hers. Another internal process at play here is what I call following rigid rules. And a lot of times, people are following these rules without even realizing that's what's happening. When I say rules, I mean thoughts, beliefs, or ideas about your role and what you have to do or can't do. It might be something like your mind telling you, I have to put everyone's needs before mine, or I can't disappoint other people. And this often links back to low self-worth. So you might have these thoughts, get kind of hooked by them, and then follow them like they're actual rules. So this woman might have had thoughts like, if the school needs help, I have to give it, or I simply can't disappoint them. Then she replies to the email and says yes automatically without even thinking about it, only later realizing, wait, why did I just agree to that? The third thing that can happen is the person might have fear or anxiety about bending or breaking or going against these internal rules. They might be afraid they'll be judged as selfish or not pulling their weight if they say no. And then they do whatever they can to make that fear go away. The easiest way to avoid the anxiety of going against a rule, like I have to put everyone's needs before mine, is to just keep doing exactly that. It brings immediate relief. So the agenda becomes, I'll do whatever I have to do to avoid the anxiety. And so they do. So this woman might feel anxious about putting her own needs first for once and having a low-key weekend to rest and catch up. And the simplest way to make that anxiety go away is to just say yes and put the school's needs before hers. She might also know that if she says no, she'll feel guilty. So to avoid the guilt, she says yes and then overperforms through the whole thing. It also lets her escape that sense of not being good enough unless she's helping and being of service all the time. It gives her short-term relief from fear, guilt, and not good enoughness in the moment, but the long-term consequence is the drain and depletion you see for her at the end of the day. Another process that might be happening here is that this woman might not be aware of her basic personal rights as a human being. For example, she might have never learned that she has the right for her needs and wants to be equally important as other people's. She might not realize she has the right to say no to requests or demands she can't or doesn't want to meet. She may not feel like she has the right to decide what's right for her life, determine her own priorities, or have time and space to herself for what matters to her. Everyone has these rights, but this person might not feel that she does, or might not really understand what it means to have personal rights in her own life. And yet she'd probably say that the people she loves have these rights, for sure, so that's another thing at play. And there may also be a lack of assertiveness skills going on here. Maybe she was never taught how to be assertive in the first place, or maybe she's learned some of the skills, but she's not using them because of other processes we've been talking about. So instead of setting a limit or boundary and saying no respectfully, she says yes and then does all the things she's come to expect of herself. She might not know how to turn down a request in a fair and respectful way, or she might not know how to do it without feeling like she's coming off as rude or selfish. So it ends up feeling easier just to say yes. These internal processes and behaviors aren't in any way bad or wrong, but they become unworkable and start to get in the way of living a rich, full life for the woman herself. And as you can see, this person's values are sitting right beneath the surface. She probably really values being kind, helpful, and supportive. And on the outside, this can look like helping, but because she's neglecting her own needs, it drains and depletes her over time. And it can get a little confusing because another time that same kind of request might come through, and that week she actually has the energy. Maybe she feels caught up, so it would work out perfectly fine for her to say yes and help out. So the confusion comes in when she compares herself to those other times that she helped and it turned out fine. So she might minimize the mental load this might involve and tell herself, what's the big deal? Another piece at play is that these patterns affirm a positive self-identity as being a caregiver and a helper, or the idea that I'm a good person. And when you hear something like, I don't know what we'd do without you, you get a little dopamine hit. It feels good to be of use, and that makes the pattern hard to break. Because if you don't make yourself indispensable, you won't get that steady hit of approval, even when you might actually get your own needs met in the big picture. So here's how this might look if this person is working on these people-pleasing patterns. And I'm saying working on purpose. It's not going to be perfect, but it can get easier. So we have the same person and the same request from the school. She notices she feels tired just reading the email, and she realizes she's been really wanting a weekend to rest and catch up on household stuff. She notices the impulse to say yes to avoid the anxiety of being judged and the guilt she might feel if she says no. She also notices her first thoughts as rules she's followed in the past, like I must put their needs above my own. She does a quick self-check. How tired am I? Will I feel resentful and exhausted if I do this? And the answer is very tired and yes. She notices some beliefs coming up around not being enough unless she overgives, so she gives herself some compassion. She reminds herself it's hard to still have these beliefs, but they're old habitual thoughts that show up from time to time. So she notices them, and instead of acting on them immediately or trying to fight against them, she takes a deep breath and lets them just be there. She knows they'll come and go on their own, and she doesn't have to act on them. She tells herself, not this time. I really need this weekend to myself. And she remembers her basic personal rights. She has the right to have time and space to herself. Her needs and wants are equally important as other people's. And she has the right to say no to requests that she can't or doesn't want to meet. She takes a few moments before responding. She helps herself feel safe enough using a quick grounding exercise because she knows that when she's stressed, she has a tendency to fall into this pattern of helping and caregiving. So she writes back, thanks for reaching out. I'm not able to volunteer this time, but I hope it goes well. She closes her phone and sighs with relief. She now has her weekend for resting and catching up, and it hasn't gotten hijacked by something else. She notices she feels a little guilty, but she knows that that's to be expected when you start changing patterns. She lets the guilt be there without trying to fix it. It comes and goes on its own, and she moves on with her day. The assertiveness skill she's working on here is setting a limit and saying no in a fair and respectful way. It used to be that she would put the needs of the school, the teachers, the PTA, or family and friends above what she needs. But this time she said no because she truly listened to herself. She didn't say no because she's selfish or just for the sake of saying no to work on boundaries. In fact, if a similar request comes up the next week, she might say yes because she'll be caught up and have the energy. She would have to just see how she's feeling at the time. And she doesn't say no to everything now just because she's trying to stop people-pleasing. It's still important to her to be helpful, caring, and kind. She's just starting to find more balance between the yeses and the nos. As you can tell, this example is generalizable to other situations that don't have to do with a school or kids. It could be your workplace, your family, your friend group, or anywhere you feel that pull to be the one who takes care of everything and everyone, and then find yourself overhelping and paying for it later. So the problem isn't helping, it's helping too much on autopilot, even when it costs you, and you end up neglecting yourself. And the goal isn't to stop being a caring, helpful person. It's to become more balanced and bring care for yourself into the picture too. So this video was on a specific theme, the helper caretaker theme, with a couple others mixed in there as well, because these themes tend to overlap. You may have heard a bit of the overfunctioner or overdoer theme and also the overly responsible theme. If you're unfamiliar with the themes I'm talking about, they're outlined in my workbook, The People-Pleasing Primer. So if you want help identifying which themes show up the most for you, that's exactly what the workbook is designed to do. It has checklists on 12 themes and walks you through a reflection process so you can get clear on what's draining you most. It's free and you can download it with the link in the description below. And if you found yourself relating to any parts of this video, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know what resonated or what felt applicable to your own people-pleasing recovery journey. Thanks for watching.